Welcome to 2021 and the first episode of Black Coffee and Crime for this new year. So I see y'all made it.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. So yeah, 2021 was kind of like the new year was kind of uneventful. I think everyone was kind of like on pins and needles wondering like what was going to happen. Like, was the world going to end? Was California going to just drop off into the Pacific Ocean? Was Krakatoa going to erupt? Like, it was just, we're just waiting for like the Kraken to come out of the ocean, everything, and nothing happened. And yeah. And I don't know where everyone else is, but I know, Jackie, you're here in the DFW. It was raining like hell.
I
And
mean, like crazy.
so there was like barely any traffic on the streets. I had to work that night, which was whatever, but I got paid for it. There was barely any traffic. I know I did hear the fireworks
Mhm.
because I was downtown, but it was really quiet. Um, and I was just apprehensive, like, okay, we made it to another year, but in making it to 2021, COVID cases have skyrocketed. There's a new strain of COVID. Um, this coming Tuesday on the 5th is the election, the runoff election in Georgia, which could potentially change the Senate. And then on the 6th, on Wednesday, they're talking about like some sort of rally or whatever, because that's the day that Mike Pence has to declare that Joe Biden is the president elect. There's a lot of stuff going
Really,
on.
Do you really want to call it a rally? Because they sound like they about to come in blazing.
Yep.
We gonna call it a rally before it happens. We already kind of have an idea of what is going to happen, but we'll just say what it's supposed to be. It's supposed
Well,
to be.
they was acting a fool last time and busting out windows and doing all stuff, and they were just still caught protesters. So
Right. Um, in the same way that there was a bombing in Nashville, was that Christmas Day or Christmas Eve? Was Christmas Day?
Christmas Day morning, because
Christmas
remember my
Day.
phone, I had no phone service for
Right,
Christmas.
because Brandy lives very close to the Tennessee Valley area. So between Nashville, it's like what, an hour and a half between you and Nashville. And so her service was affected. So there was a bombing. A guy in a Winnebago RV or whatever basically announced that he was going to do something in Nashville. Bomb goes off downtown Nashville, knocks out service everywhere. They're not calling him a terrorist because apparently he didn't have, what was it, a manifesto or something, or he wasn't a part of a group. He wasn't a part of a group, so they're not going to call him a terrorist. But he did have a manifesto. He did have kind of like I'm doing this because of this. He actually gave away some of his property prior to doing this.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was bad. And the fact that you, Jackie, do not know that there was a bombing in a major American city on Christmas Day is crazy, because it should have been everywhere. It should have been everywhere. As a matter of fact, our outgoing Cheeto in chief did not address this. He was actually went golfing that day. I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, you had someone bomb a major American city and you go golfing and there's no.
And this is the crazy thing that's come out since the bombing.
Mhm.
This guy, his girlfriend, as well as his lawyer, let the authorities know that he was building bombs in his RV.
They knew ahead of time?
2019.
They have been talking about it. They have been telling the authorities this guy is dangerous, and they didn't do anything.
The lawyer.
Who is bound by attorney-client privilege is like,
Right.
he gonna kill y'all, and nothing was done.
Nope.
He's not a terrorist. No.
What's the death toll?
Just him.
Himself, but the damage. If you
Was the
see
okay, the
pictures,
damage.
if you can, I'm quite sure you can find it. But if you see the pictures of the damage, it looks like Lebanon or some third world country.
He rode through the area with a loudspeaker at 6:30 in the morning, warning people and
To
counting,
get out of the area.
that it was going to happen. So they were
Okay.
able to
Get out in time.
Yeah.
out,
So,
but people's homes and their businesses, as well as cell service for what, 2 days.
2 or 3 days we're out. And
Landlines. I think the first night I couldn't use Wi-Fi calling, but by the next day I could use Wi-Fi calling.
yeah,
But like no text. I had to call Brand through Messenger.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, just think about that. And like I said, from where Brandy lives in Nashville, it's about an hour and a half drive through the Tennessee Valley area. And so in that area, in that radius, cell service was out. I actually work in an industry that one of our clients is a major carrier. And I knew going into work the day after Christmas that it was going to be extremely busy because the cell sites and the towers were down and all the buildings were down. So all night I just kept getting service calls for that.
Walmart wasn't accepting. I mean, you had to have cash. And how often have we been told to have that they don't have no change?
Right.
So who's walking around with cash in 2020, really? Because nobody has change.
Right.
So,
but that's an
yeah,
argument
Walmart.
about, that's like an argument about like apocalyptic kind of things because they, like you're supposed to, in the case of an emergency like this, you should have cash because if the grid goes down, where do you go? But like you said, Brand, like we don't have cash. Like I don't think I have 10 cents in my wallet right now.
I keep a little change because
I don't have any change. I have a jar. Like if I have change, I have a jar on my shelf, like as offerings, and y'all can think I'm weird if you want to, but that's my jar. It's the offerings to the ancestors, and I just put the money in the jar. Maybe one of my ancestors or somebody else's ancestors need a little change to give the ferryman to go across the river. I don't know, but going ahead and use them quarters. So yeah, that's since we talked last on this show, that has been happening. But again, we made it to 2021. We are going to be extremely hopeful for that the vaccines work, that they get better, that people are able to recover more financially as well as with their health this year, because unemployment benefits ended on the 31st. We are going through a fight for stimulus. Other countries have been receiving a couple of $1,000s a month per citizen. We received $600, in May or something like that, and then had to fight for the $600 that is still trickling in. And Mitch McConnell, who was the majority whip, he will not sign off or approve or vote for a $2,000 stimulus because he's like, that's too much money.
Well, he has it now, but it's along with all the other things that Trump wanted. So they're causing it the poison pill.
And considering the rents, the average rent in this country, $2,000 is not even enough. But I mean, it's something. But I'm gonna tell you, I got my stimulus and it's gone. I paid 2 bills with it. 2, it's gone.
Me too.
Now, I mean, I was grateful to get it, but it was gone. That wasn't the rent. That wasn't a car payment. It was just 2 regular ass bills. So I can just imagine people who are not working and who are relying on unemployment, how desperate a situation this is right now. So that's something that we're still going through. So we're just going to be hopeful of things that are coming. Now, talking about things that are coming, as the year goes by and this show grows and, we do different things. So we've been making some changes as far as theme music, possibly logo. Just bear with us. If you don't like it, let us know. And then we'll consider what you have to say. So I know we started off just talking, but we are going to do the church announcements today because we got some stuff to talk about in the church announcements. And they are as follows.
Govern yourselves.
Please govern yourselves accordingly going forward. From the very beginning in this show, we have always said that we express our opinions in conversation, in the same conversations that you would have at work about stuff. We talk about, in this case, we talk about crime and current events. We give our opinions. We also present the facts as we find them. We don't make it up. If we mispronounce a name, we apologize. If we juxtapose some dates, we apologize. If we misspeak, we still apologize. Please let us know if we get the facts wrong. We always say that. If we get it wrong, let us know. We'll make the correction. We're not here to be malicious. We're not here to dig and find some information that is detrimental to your family or anything like that. We're not looking through personal items or personal information regarding your family. We look at the articles that have already been published. If we watch the documentaries that have already been made. So again, if we get something wrong, let us know. We're not here to try to make something up or try to sensationalize anything. We just find things interesting and then we report them. And the reason why I'm saying this is because we did an episode, I think episode 8. Let's go back. The Briley brothers. Was it the Brileys? I forget what episode it was. But it was one of the early episodes, and we did the Briley brothers, and there were the 3 brothers, Linwood, James, and Anthony, and then a friend of theirs, Meekins, who committed some crimes in 1979. Linwood and James were convicted and got the death penalty for those murders. Anthony was convicted of the murders but did not get the death penalty. He got a life sentence. Darren Meekins, I believe it's Darren, but the last name is definitely Meekins. He turned state's evidence and he got a lighter sentence than all 3 of them, the 3 brothers. So the way it goes is, again, Linwood and James were convicted of the murders of there's evidence of them actually committing the murders. Anthony was convicted of the murders because he was present during the murders, but there's no concrete evidence that he actually physically committed them. I don't recall in that episode saying anything different other than that, because that's not any information that we received that he actually committed the murder. He was present, but it was always that the older 2 brothers were definitely the ones that committed the murder. So that is something that was brought to our attention, that we did say that Anthony was a murderer. But here's the thing. He was convicted of murder. That's on the books in the state of Virginia, that he was convicted of murder. So he's a convicted murderer. Whether or not he pulled a trigger, used a knife, bludgeoned anyone, I don't know. I wasn't there. But the fact of the matter is, there's a conviction on the books for murder. Everything else is semantics. And I hate to say it that way, it seems callous, but it's semantics. But again, we apologize in advance for, getting things wrong or mixing things up. Let us know how we did that and, go from there. But again, govern yourselves accordingly. Always be respectful. We're not here to be malicious. We're just here talking. Those are the church announcements. That's it. Please obey your ushers and don't chew gum in front of the pastor. All right. So, as we said in our last episode, we had planned to do an episode about a documentary called 40 Years a Prisoner. So this episode is going to be a breakdown. So we are going to talk about 40 Years a Prisoner, which is a documentary that debuted on HBO on December 3rd regarding the MOVE convictions. There was 9 people convicted of killing a cop in 1970. Was that 78? 1978 in Philadelphia. In 1985, that same group, they had moved to a different location. The same group, they were bombed by the Philadelphia Police Department in 1985, where 11 people passed away, including 5 children, and 61 homes were destroyed. And even in this present day, those 61 homes have not been restored, and the block is largely still uninhabitable after almost 40 years. So, all right. So this documentary was basically surrounds the 40-year journey of Michael Africa Jr. His parents, Michael Africa Sr. and Debbie Africa, were convicted in 1978 of killing a cop, involvement in killing a cop. Themselves and 7 other people got 30 to 100 years in prison.
Yep.
Michael Jr. himself was born incarcerated. He had never, until his mother had been released, and was it 2018, early 2018, 2017?
Yeah.
He had never been in the, like his mother says in the documentary that she had never had the possession of her son. Mm-hmm. That was the first time that she had actually been together with him. And then in 2018, his father, Michael Sr., was released. Let me ask you this, because a lot of people, if you look at comments and YouTube videos and just a lot of people, no one knows that this ever happened. So
no.
Brandy, I know that you've watched a different documentary prior to this one about MOVE, but Jackie, did you have any idea of what MOVE actually was and what happened in 1985, let alone what happened in 1978?
Did not. Not until, discussions came out and you had mentioned, like, hey, Jack, like, you really need to check this out. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay. But prior to that, no, had never heard it. And even after learning about it, I'm like, how did I not hear about this? Right. Really how I felt. Like, how did I not know?
How do you not know that 5 years before the Waco bombing with David Koresh?
Right.
That the police department in West Philadelphia dropped a bomb on a house filled with children.
Yes.
How do you not know that?
How did I not know that?
We are actually going to talk about the 1985 bombing next week on the next episode, because the documentary 40 Years a Prisoner actually centers around the incidents that involve the death of a cop and the siege that they okay, so this group MOVE had been fighting with the Philadelphia police for years, for almost an entire decade prior to the incident, the first incident. Right. So in 1972, John Africa started a movement. You all can look up John Africa. He started a movement, and he's mentioned in the documentary, but you really don't know who John Africa is. He's like Kaiser Soze. So John Africa started
even when they were asking them like questions about him, they keep it. It's a very minimal. They're not going to say much. It's just like, hey, we follow his. Just know we follow him. That's it. You don't need to know about nothing. Where's he at?
The documentary that I watched went a little bit more into him, and for some reason I cannot remember the name. I remember I watched it on PBS, so I'm going to try to look and see if I can find it, and I want to rewatch that again to put with this one. But I think they talked about it just a little bit more.
Okay, we'll actually go into more about who John Africa is in the next episode. But basically, he did die in the 1985 bombing in West Philadelphia. So he did die in that incident there. But he was the founder of this movement, and they were anti-government, anti-technology. They would like wear simple clothes. They were kind of
anti-police brutality,
and they were
like naturalist,
naturalist and vegan and eating clean. But here's the thing, though, they were doing that in the urban setting,
right? And
it really threw people off, because you have to think in 1972, you were coming off of the tail end of the civil rights movement. So the smoke of that is just clearing of the civil rights movement. And then you also have the Black Panthers and all, some other groups coming in and existing at the same time. But what they're doing is they are living a very hippie-ish life that is not glamorous and not, there was another group in Hollywood, like the Children of God, or not the Children of God, I forget what their name, the Family or something like that. and they had like a vegan spot in Hollywood, but they were really popular, really glamorous. Move was not. Move was serious.
Mm-mm.
These people were serious. Like they were walking. They were young people, early, like barely out of their teens, early 20s. Um, and of course, they're very disillusioned. The Philadelphia Police Department is notorious, y'all, notorious. And if you watch this documentary, the things that they say, um, one of
Are
the
you
things
talking about that officer that was looking back on it, talking about how he had to go take a bath? He went to
Yes.
the compound, talking about he had to go home and take a bath, talking about the women were naked or
the children
barely
were
naked.
naked.
But yet the videos we see, the children were naked. But I mean, my kids was naked most of their. They always. I mean, they didn't have no clothes on when they were at home.
Yeah, and there were just a bunch of topics.
Breastfeeding her child, she's fully clothed. But I mean, he was just like, they were so dirty, and I had to go home and
Go
take
home and take a bath.
bath. Like,
Yeah. I was like, what the?
And they are always, and even when I'm using that pronoun, the members of MOVE are always referred to as they. And even in using that word, in the way that the word is used, it is very condescending. And I mean, it is almost a curse word the way they say they.
Mm-hmm.
It is reducing them, the members, down to less than savages. And you can hear that every time they say that word. It is all, I mean, it sounds like they're cursing at them. The mayor at the time was Frank Rizzo. He was mayor of Philadelphia from 1972 to 1978. Very derisive guy. He was doing a TV interview, and he says what the interview was asking him about, that there had been like 150 police deaths by police officers. More than half of them had been to unarmed people since 1972, and so in the 6 years that he had been in office, that more than 150 people had died by the police, and more than half of them was from they were unarmed. And so the interviewer was asking him, don't you think that's excessive? He flat out says no. He's like, no, I don't. And then he says, who should be more aggressive, the police or the criminal element? And he basically backs that up, further by he supports his officers, and however they act and whatever they do is justified. So the police department is sanctioned to do what they are given carte blanche to do whatever they want.
Pretty much.
Whatever they want. There was no checks and balances. So the fact that they attacked this group.
This is the thing that really got me upset, is when they came, they said that they had some kind of a celebration or something from some people that had got out of prison.
The baby.
The baby. That they came in there with clubs where they were hitting the people so hard, the clubs were breaking in half.
Yes.
They were attacking the people, and somehow a woman who was being attacked fell on her baby and basically crushed the baby.
Yes, that was Janine, Africa.
These police officers and officials said, tried to say first, the baby did not exist, because of course they didn't go to the hospital or whatever. But they were lying. They killed a 1-month-old child, and then gonna say the child did not exist.
Mm-hmm.
That right there.
That was the catalyst for what happened during the next year and a half, leading into that siege that led to the death of the officer, and the arresting conviction of 9 members. So after that incident and the death of the baby, and I thought that was absolutely horrible, that one, you deny the existence of the child, but yet you there was a controversy about the Janine and the baby's father not allowing them to collect the child after that. So is there a baby or no?
Well, they put the baby on display for them to see, but would you give your baby for them to do some kind of autopsy, for them to try to turn? First of all, you already said this baby didn't exist. You tried to use that to make.
Who's to say that they would have destroyed the baby's remains, wouldn't have destroyed the baby's remains, and then said we can't find it? Because we know that happens with black bodies. We can't find them. Those happens with brown bodies all the time. We can't find them. We don't know where they're at. Things like that. So that baby's death in 1976 was the catalyst going forward. After that, there was they barricaded them in there. They basically did a blockade where they could not get food into their compound. So basically, the house that they were in at that time, was like on a corner, and they had put like fences up. They had barricaded the windows, and they had dogs in there because they were also big animal rights activists.
Yes.
You know? So they would collect stray animals, and they kind of it looked a little slovenly, but listen, if that's the way you want to live, that's the way you want to live. The neighbors were kind of bothered by it, but again, they were like, whatever. That's them. But they blockaded them. They could not get food. And then there was a kind of like a 90-day truce that says, look, you guys will be easy for 90 days. We'll be easy for 90 days. But the city reneged on the deal. The city's aim the entire time was to evict them from a property that they owned. They owned the property, was to evict them from this property. They came in with bulldozers and just started destroying all of their barricades, and that's where the siege. That's where it started. The siege started. There were 600 Philadelphia police officers there.
Excessive.
600.
When I heard that, I was like, 600. 600 officers for about, I don't know, maybe about
semi-automatic rifles and Tommy guns.
Yeah.
Even if they had 100 folks over there, do you need
with rifles and shotguns? That's what they had, rifles and shotguns. Basically weapons that you would use to protect yourself. Not semi-automatic, not anti-police gear, nothing like that. And I think it was Delbert Africa who said, if they come to us with their hands, we'll fight with their hands. If they come to us with guns, we'll fight with guns to defend ourselves. Basically, measure for measure. We are not here, and they always preach nonviolence. We are not here to be violent, but we will protect ourselves against police brutality, which makes sense. That's what the Second Amendment is all about. That's what this country is all about. You protect yourself.
And despite them saying that consistently, they still painted them as monsters. Any opportunity they had to say, oh, they're just randomly cussing us out. They're just standing over there cursing for nothing. Well, it's because you're trying to, are you serious? Like, y'all are literally standing at their little space with your rifles in their face for no reason. And you expect them to just sit there and be relaxed? That was something that was bothering me, because every time they had a chance, they were just like, they're just animals. They're just over there. Just
you remember the journalist said at the time that, she thought these folks were, out of line or whatever. But now she was looking back and she said these were just young kids.
Yes.
Just young kids. That's all they were.
That's the same journalist that they actually allowed to go view the body of the baby. Mm-hmm. So that was the journalist. But she's like, yeah, I thought that all this was justified, but they were just kids. Looking back. But there was also a journalist who I want to say the journalist's last name in the document was Goldstein or something like that. He was like, this is what they asked for. They wanted this. They made the decisions to do this. And I'm like, 40 years later, you're still staunchly on, they asked for this. No one.
Because they didn't see them as anything other than what they needed to paint them as, to make them look like they were doing what they were supposed to be doing.
Right. And
that would mean you'd have to go back and say, I was wrong. We were wrong for bombing these people to death. We were wrong for blowing out a whole city block of innocent folks' homes.
Yes.
We were wrong for that. And they're not going to go back and say, we were
No.
wrong for. I mean, we still marching and stuff for police
And
brutality.
they dig deeper. Even now, they dig deeper. Some of the most disturbing footage in the documentary is just the interviews talking to the police officers and the police commissioner and the mayor. And it's still so relevant right now because these are the same attitudes, the same words that we hear now. One of the reporters was talking to one of the young members, and he was saying, but you're breaking the law. That's why they want to evict you. And he's like, but this is my house. Is it okay if they come to your house to evict you on something that you own? And the reporter's like, but they said it's against the law. They said it's the law. You broke the law. But this is my house. You can't evict me from my house. I own this. And so it was just, I think that the agenda of the police department and the mayor's office was just because you had these radical Black and brown people in Philadelphia who refused to give in to the fear and just refused to lick their boots. Because,
and the thing is, they might have been a little bit crazy, but
did that warrant that? Was that
even the neighbors in the community were like, this is wrong. This is wrong what you're doing to them.
It could have been that what they were going to experiencing was causing them to behave that way, because naturally they aren't those type of people. They naturally weren't those type of people that were aggressive. They were just trying to live their little peaceful life. Right. And then here you got aggressors that are trying to change or trying to punish us for the way that we're choosing to live, our own personal choice. I'm sure eventually, especially considering their age, you hot-tempered. It's easy to get frustrated if you're constantly picked on. That's easy to do.
And as like when you're saying their age, as young people are always in the middle, and the young people are leading the charge in every single movement. If you think about the civil rights movement, the civil rights movement really got going once there was the Children's March in Birmingham. That is what pushed the civil rights movement to be what it was the Children's March. So once the children get involved and the young people get involved, things start to happen. And I think that some of the pushback that you see from the neighbors, especially the Black neighbors, was because they're coming out of the civil rights movement. These people own their homes now. So this kind of like, I want to be peaceful. I want to just have them leave us alone. So it was more about, if you just be quiet, then they'll leave you guys alone and they won't come in our neighborhoods. But we all know it doesn't matter if we are quiet, complacent, if we do what the officer says, it does not matter. The quieter we are, the more they're going to fuck with us. Because that means that we're prospering. If you think about Black Wall Street, we're prospering. If you think about Greensboro, we're prospering. If you think about Rosewood, we're prospering when we're quiet. So there has to be some agitation. But even in all of that, I could still not think of a motive of the Philadelphia Police Department. Like, what was it about these young people that bothered Rizzo and his regime so much? I could not think of anything.
I think to me, I think when they start, if you want to eat vegan, if you want to, okay to the animals, but when you start talking about, we were against police brutality, we want prison reform, we want all these things. I think that's when they were kind of like, how dare you?
Yes.
Tell us how to treat you, treat you, basically.
One of the articles that flashed they flashed some news articles was the headline said police brutality is a myth. And the police are something about the police being the ones under attack in this, was in the newspaper as headlines. And you're right, like the moment that you start to attack the establishment and say, we just want to be treated fairly, you can't be autonomous, which is the exact same thing that we're still talking about right now. And police unions. And you heard that word, that phrase a lot in this documentary, was police unions. The police unions are very strong. Lots of money is funneling through these organizations. And it allows the police departments to be autonomous because people's pockets and hands are being greased heavily to allow this behavior to continue. And this is that old boys network that we see now. Look at Mitch McConnell. He's greasing the palms of billionaires with our tax dollars, but we can't get $2,000. So right. This is the same thing. And
I mean, we know it wasn't just that they just disliked them. You bombed a whole city block of innocent folks' places. It wasn't just about, they didn't care nothing about nobody in that neighborhood.
No, not at all. Not at all. And in this incident where the shooting happened, so back to this, there's 600 officers that show up they have a bulldozer. Mm-hmm. They know exactly how many people are in that house. They bring the fire hoses. They bring tear gas. They knew because they consulted with the medical examiner about tear gas and the effects that it would have on children and infants.
Yep.
So you knew going in that you were going to use tear gas and there were babies in there. They flooded the basement with the water. They're shooting in there. And an officer gets killed. They say that it was from a bullet from one of the members. It wasn't. It was from friendly fire. Crossfire. They go in there after that. You know, some of the women were trying to come out, but they would be met by armed officers like right in their face as they tried to come out with their kids. So they're just rounding people up, putting them in the paddy wagons. There's an officer who was killed. I think his name was Rant or something like that. And they round everybody up. And then they commence to beat the hell out of whoever comes out of the house. Yeah. Delbert, this is evidence that video doesn't fucking matter, okay? Because in 1977, 1978, they have video of Delbert Africa getting the dog mess kicked out of him. And when the officers were taken to trial,
with the still photo of a kick, with a still photo, I just couldn't believe that part. The still photo of the kick, the leg is hiked back, it's ready to go.
It's amazing. And the officer justified the excessive force by saying that Delbert was reaching for his gun. But in that photo that you're talking about, very clearly, the man's gun was still holstered.
His hands was like this.
And the judge in that trial, because the district attorney, after those photos and the video came out, the district attorney said, we have to prosecute these cops. We have to prosecute these cops. The judge actually acquitted the officers. He took it away from the jury. Through the trial, they go through a trial, and he takes the decision away from the jury and acquits the officers. Something that had never been done, and he was not checked for it. There were no appeals for it. They just let that go. And Delbert has been damaged. He's still, as far as I know, I think he's still in prison. He's been damaged since then. I mean, and one of the officers in the documentary says they took him to the hospital, but they should have taken him to the morgue. That's what he says. Took him to the hospital. And he says that he makes the comment that when Delbert came out, because he came out in surrender.
Yeah, through the window.
Out in surrender. And he says that he was, did he say he was dealt with or he was,
I forgot the word because me and my daughter Googled it, so I
he,
can't because
it
I
was like
wasn't 100
basically like
sure
he
what
was
that meant.
handled or something like that. But then
Mhm.
he says something to the tune of he was handled, but then in the very next frames of the film, he's being beaten and kicked like Rodney King style.
Subdued, subdued. That's what he said.
Yes, he was being subdued. But in the next moments, he is being beaten Rodney King style.
Yep, toe
And he
up.
came out in surrender. Subsequently, after that, the 9 members who have been rounded up are convicted. They go through a trial, but they're not even allowed to have their own attorneys.
Nope.
Their attorneys that were supposed to assist them through the trial were dismissed. Court appointed attorneys were assigned to them
Girl.
that would not rebuttal the judge
And
because they
mind
didn't want to be
boggling.
held in contempt. So basically, they had them plead guilty to the crimes because the lawyers were like, yeah, we don't want to be held in contempt. What? You don't lose your license for being held in contempt. You probably pay a fine. How do you take away the legal representation, qualified legal representation, appoint your own lawyers, and then shut them up and nobody says anything?
Nope.
And still doubling down to this day.
Yes. No one says, wait, this is a violation of all kinds of constitutional rights right here. Now, if their attorneys are not able to assist them, that's one thing. But you say, no, you can't do this. We got our own. Make that make sense.
Make it make sense.
And 40 years later, most of these people are still in prison. 30 to 100 years. And it has been proven now that the bullet that killed the officer was most likely from another police officer.
And this is
Because
how I watched the whole how I had to,
right, like, and they know that because the weapons that they brought out of the basement were absolutely clean. Those were weapons that were from the office.
Yep.
Because the basement was flooded. So how you gonna do an investigation with a flooded, dark basement filled with smoke and find 100 and some weapons in there, semi-automatic weapons?
Remember the guy said though, he said that he just randomly did a drawing of what he thought he remembered. Now it's dark in the basement, it's flooded. So here he is trying to do a memory of the drawing of what he thought everything looked like. And that's what they went on. I was like, what?
Yeah. And so this becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy because this is exactly what they've been saying that happens. This is why we are in the group that we're in. This is why we fight against police brutality and corruption. And then you guys do this, which proves our point.
Mm-hmm.
This proves our point. You are killing our kids, babies.
Yeah.
But you want to talk about how Christian you are. You want to talk about the preservation of life when there are toddlers running around in this house and you guys, instead of saying, look, we'll work with you to clean it up, get the dogs, whatever. And that's what they were trying to do. That was before the siege started. Their 90 days was almost up. And they were trying to get an extension because they wanted to make sure that their animals had some place to go.
Mm-hmm.
Before that they had to leave that property.
Isn't that something? That's all they wanted.
The thing that killed me is you knew all those children. Like the police officer was saying, he was talking about how all the children were running around naked. Like you knew there were women and children.
Yeah, y'all knew this was coming. Even in 2021, I can't get rid of it. Yeah, you knew that who was in there. They knew exactly who was in that house. And yet you all move forward with this. You went as far as to consult a medical professional to find out what the effects of the gases would be on the babies. Yeah. And for what? For what? So these
I
guys
kept
go to
looking
prison.
at
But
the aftermath of when they were coming out, when they were surrendering,
mhm.
and how the adults were responding to gas. Imagine a child,
Right.
them children, because some of them were toting out little babies, literally little
Yeah,
bitty
they were
babies.
putting the babies in front of them
Yeah,
so that
like
they
look,
would shoot,
I'm
which is
like he
horrible.
just
Having to make the decision to use your child as a shield. So, what does that do to you? You know what I mean? Like, you're so helpless that that is your only option. Because if they see me, they're going to shoot me.
mm-hmm.
They are going to shoot me.
And the thing is, they didn't care if you had them babies out, no way.
Sure
I
didn't.
didn't because the baby of Janine Africa. And by the way, everyone in the Move compound last name had been changed to Africa. They adopted the last name of John Africa, so that's why we keep. So there were like plenty of members like Delbert, Michael, Consuela, Mo, Phil, Janine, Carlos, Debbie. So there was lots of people, young people there, but 9 of them were convicted. So
How dare you change your name to Africa?
How dare you?
how dare you? So they're convicted. Now the subject of this documentary was Michael Africa Jr. His father is Michael Sr. Michael was born to Debbie in prison, Coral Springs prison, I believe. And he ended up going between her family and the members of Move because he's also involved in the bombing in 1985, which we'll talk about. Basically, he's been fighting his entire life to get his parents freed. He found out who his father was his father when he was 5 years old. They've been going back and forth to the prison, and his dad said, "Do you know who I am?" The little boy's like, "No." He's like, "Well, my name is Michael too." And then he's like, "Oh, because I'm your father." And then that was like an instant bond between them. But just imagine your father and your mother raising you from behind bars for 40.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the part that really got me is when he went into his mother's prison cell and he laid on that bed.
Don't do that, Brandy.
That part right there just,
Ooh.
that hurt. I mean, that really affected me. I'm sorry. I didn't want to start crying, but he laid on that bed and closed his eyes and know that's where his mother had him, gave birth to him, and was in that prison cell for all those years. The exact prison cell.
Like she had to steep like a tea bag in her own trauma. And you know, you have to think about all the women now who are arrested and incarcerated while pregnant. They give birth with one arm chained to the bed. The most traumatic experience of your entire life.
I'm sorry, y'all.
You're good. When you are the closest to death that you will ever get is when you are bearing a child, because all of your body is focused on this exit that's about to happen. And you have to do that alone. Your man, not your husband, not your boyfriend, your man. And that's a whole different meaning when you say this is my man. Your man is across the state in a place that he cannot be there with you.
And to know you're not even supposed to be there. You're not even supposed to be there.
Right. Your mother, your sisters, your people cannot be around you. And then I have this man child and I cannot. He does not belong to me. So if we want to talk about the ravages of slavery and what slavery means, that is it, because that has happened in Middle Passage, that happened on every plantation, and that happens in every new plantation.
Even at the beginning, when he was talking about his dad, And the guy said something that bothered me because he was like, well, why would you still want to visit some murderers? Why would you? He's a murderer, you know? Why would you want to get your dad out? He's a murderer. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Are you serious? He's like, because he's my dad and I love him and I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get them out of there.
Yep.
He literally labeled them
Murder.
as murderers.
Because the media really fueled this whole thing. There was reporters lying about bullets coming from places that
Yes.
guns. And so the media were telling all kinds of shit, all kinds of lies, and they continue to do that even now. I don't know what kind of strength Michael Jr. had to have on a daily basis to wake up. Having gone through all of this trauma secondhand and firsthand, seeing what he saw and still be able to function as a Black man in the society and as a Black husband and as a Black father.
Mm-hmm.
And not be resentful towards the parents that technically abandoned him. To love these people from afar. Like, you can't really embrace your mom. You can't sit in her lap. You can't hug your father. And one of the things that he said was his father would promise him, like, when I get out of here, we're going to do normal stuff like basketball and stuff. He's 40. His father's old. You missed everything. Literally everything. So I think part of this is, I think we're disconnected from prison culture because we're like, oh, they did that. They did that. They deserve it. Listen, you're
not the only one that goes to prison.
You're not the only one who goes to
prison with you. Everybody.
You're
just
not the only
being there, and you're not supposed to be there.
Yep, you're not the only one who does the time. Everybody who is connected with you does the time. They had come up for parole several times. Delbert, I think, came up for parole like 7 times in his time. Debbie, Michael's mother, figured out what she needed to say in a parole hearing in order to get her out. They never really want you to say sorry. They don't really care. There's just certain things that they want to hear. So she is granted parole and is released. Yeah. When he's in the car with his mom sitting in that back seat, and he looks at his mom like he's so in love with her. I'm like, I was watching that part with my mom. My mom was sitting here and I was like, he is so in love with her. Like, just to be able to sit there and touch her like that. Like that I was done with that part. And then
the whole time, if you watch his mannerism, it's love. He was just
all love.
I'm talking when he speak about them, his face, it just be like, my dad just, when he get out, we're gonna do this, and
this whole thing,
like he's 40.
Yeah,
like, he's 40, and look how look the joy on his face when he talk about them. It's quite beautiful. I'm like, look at the joy.
This entire documentary is like an homage to Black love. Yeah. Every type of Black love you can think about. Platonic, mother to child, father to son, all of that. Like, if you don't know what Black love looks like, you need to watch. This is one of the best love stories I've ever seen. These people love each other.
Yes.
Love their environment. They love the people outside of their environment. They are all inclusive. It wasn't just Black people. It was white people in this group. They were like, you got a problem? Come here. We got you.
Yeah, we got you.
We got you. You are us now. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is the best love story. So in 2018, Michael Jr. gets a call, and because he's still fighting for parole for his father, and he gets a call, and it's a prison official that says, hey, we're going to give your father a drug test. We're going to expedite this. We're going to see if we can get him out. That hug right there.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
That hug took me out.
Go ahead,
And
Brandy.
the fact that the two, Michael Sr. and Michael Jr., look like twins, like he's looking into a mirror of himself. And the way that he talks about his son when he's sitting on that porch, and how he did not want his son to have that burden of him, and
No, check that out.
Okay, because this last half we just gonna cry about it, because the last parts of this documentary is just, it breaks you. The reunion of Michael and Debbie, y'all. Whew. Okay, the reunion of Michael and Debbie. When those two people hugged, I told my mom, I'm not ready for that type of life. I don't know if I have the capacity for that. 40 years of trauma, and still, because most people can develop resentment towards your partner for being gone. Sure. And you put me in the situation. I had your child, and I never got to hold my child because of you. I was following you. These two people hugged as if there were no problems.
Nope.
Like, it's all done. Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, you're here, I'm here, he's here. It's all good. In true love story fashion, Michael and Debbie got married in April of 2018. Oh,
I ain't gonna make it.
Woo. I swear I didn't know that I was gonna be this emotional talking about this documentary. Why would I be emotional talking about a documentary about this? I don't know. But for him to be successful at getting his parents out, like his entire life's work, tirelessly working. And even now they're still working to get the other members released as well. Because they're like, we're out, but they're still there. My sister's brother is still there. But to the endurance of commitment and faith and love that is in this documentary, y'all. It's not your normal documentary. It's not. Because it gives you some very harsh, brutal truths that you might not want to face. Maybe you didn't know. And I know a lot of people, some people may have known about the bombing in 1985, but not a lot of people know about this first part. And what.
And I didn't know that his parents had gotten out.
Uh-huh.
Well, of course, if you hadn't heard about it at all, you wouldn't have known either.
You wouldn't know. Yeah, this documentary was produced by some people, and I want to thank them for putting their money into this. And that is Common, just to name a few: Common, John Legend, Black Thought of The Roots, also Questlove of The Roots, and it's directed by Tommy Oliver. Whew.
Thank you.
Thank you, because
showing genuine love. Maybe you have a question. That's genuine. I mean, it is genuine love.
Gosh, I ain't no good, y'all. I ain't no good.
Again, this is Black love. We talk about Black love, and I don't think there's anything that tastes like it, smells like it, looks like it, other than what it is. And if you need examples of the way that you're supposed to love,
he's it.
Each other, and how
Michael is it.
This is it. If you cannot love your brother the way that these members love their brothers, this is it. This is it. Love. You are honoring a mother and father you cannot physically touch. You are loving and honoring a mother and father that put you in harm's way twice. At your birth, during your mother's pregnancy, And then again in 1985, Michael Jr. is the only child survivor of the bombing in 1985. He had to testify at the trial about what he saw and what he went through.
It's destiny. Isn't that girl?
And yet,
Be dealing with you.
this man did not end up in the same place that his father. He did not end up there. He didn't meet his father on the yard. This man was like,
that destiny. What?
All I'm saying is that if you have not seen 40 Years of Prison on HBO, please watch that documentary. It is one of the best documentaries I've seen, and I've seen a lot. And I think because it is more than just pictures and sound bites, this is all about emotion. This is all about the trueness of history and what really happens.
Oh, Jesus.
Why we fight the way that we do. And listen, we have the right to be whoever we want to be. If we want to be hippies, we can be hippies. If we want to be separatists, we can be separatists. But we don't have peace in anything that we want to do. And I think this shows the impossibility. This documentary shows how impossible it is to exist in America while Black.
Yep.
But even in all of that, Black love still exists. It still comes out on top.
Yep.
It still comes out on top. This man, I want to say young man, but he's my age. It's not bitter at all.
Nope.
Not bitter at all. Y'all.
That's why I'm a mess over, because I keep thinking about him. So
I applaud
me showing me how to,
Yes, but I promise you, I told my mom, I'm not ready for that. I don't. I mean, I would hope to think that I would have the capacity to love like that and then also receive it back, because that kind of love is heavy. That's heavy, and you have to be responsible for it, and you have to be worthy of being loved like that. You have to be worthy of Black love. A lot of people want it, but you got to be worthy.
Yep.
And that right, this is, whew, y'all, watch 40 Years a Prisoner on HBO.
We still got to do next week, Lord Jesus. I ain't gonna put
nothing on we got to get through next week. So next week,
I ain't put nothing on my eyes.
No, not happening.
Next week we will be talking about the actual bombing of the house on Osage Street in West Philadelphia of the movement members, where 11 people lost their lives. There were actually 2 survivors, Ramona Africa and Michael Africa Jr., who is the subject of today's documentary. So thank y'all for listening to us. Thank you guys for taking this emotional journey, looking at us cry and all of that. But definitely one that you should check out the documentary, 40 Years a Prisoner, and read up on MOVE and police brutality. And we'll see you guys next week when we talk about the actual bombing in Philadelphia. So
join the conversation. Join the conversation.
Put your comments in the notes. Ask questions, because the more questions you ask, the more information we can pull up. Because sometimes there's things that we're searching for things, and there's things that we don't include in the conversation just because the conversation flows naturally. We are not scripted. We just talk, and that's why it jumps around like a normal conversation. So if there's anything that you want to know, ask us. Any comments or suggestions, please let us know. But keep your church folk. Just keep your church folk, okay? Because he ain't done with me yet. He's working. He's not done with me, so I will cuss you out in the vestibule. I will, and then go and say it at the altar. So, no, seriously, just keep it respectful, because again, we're not trying to be malicious or anything. We just have conversations about interesting topics that we find. If there's anything that you all want to talk about, let us know. And we'll definitely include that in our schedule for 2021. So again, thank you guys for joining us for the breakdown of 40 Years a Prisoner from HBO, produced on HBO. So we will see you guys next week at the same time. As always, be safe, be blessed,
Enjoy.
enjoy the second cup.
Pick up. Yep, that's it.
I'm gonna get it together. So good night, y'all.
Good night.